Oreo Cookie tweeted out, trans people exist.
What?
Yeah.
They exist?
They exist, Stu.
Oh, my gosh. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
What?
And I'd like to tweet back to Oreo Cookie, so do trans fats. And you're an expert on trans. Jeez.
I love that there's this thing where there was another story that just came out the other day that was this. It was the same thing. It was like, it was a complicated story, but basically a fake accusation of racism by a young, very wealthy student, black student, against a very non-wealthy white janitor, and her. She said, I was criticized for eating while black, and it took. They questioned whether I even existed as a person of color. It's like, well, no, everyone knows you existed. They wouldn't have said anything about you being in the room you weren't supposed to be in if they didn't think you existed. They know you exist. That was the problem. You existed in the room that was banned. And does this stuff happen? Like this language, they just turn these words, Glenn, into things that don't mean anything.
We are officially in a clown show.
Yeah.
We're in a clown show. Nothing. I'm telling you right now, I'm an alcoholic, okay? I know clown shows. My life was a clown show where nothing made sense. I could say or do whatever I wanted, and it all worked for me in my crazy head. But at some point, you're going to be forced to wake up. You're going to be forced, if you don't die, which we might, if you don't die first, you will realize we have got to sober up. And when you start going back to reality, you are going to be so ashamed of what you have tried to perpetrate on truth, on math, on science, what you have perverted everything into. I want to go over the COVID bill, the relief package, okay? Some say it's 9% COVID related. It's probably closer to 50% if you're giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I'll explain why. $58 billion bailout for the union pension funds. The left would say that absolutely is for COVID. The unions have really suffered because of COVID. No. I told you in 2010, I went over the pensions of the unions in all these blue states. They couldn't afford them then, and I told you they would come up with a way to get the United States to bail them out. Well, here it is. $34 billion in expanded Obamacare subsidies. $4 billion to pay off loans for socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. This one is absolutely unbelievable. If you are black and you own a farm, you can go to the federal government and the government will pay off your debts, mortgage, all of it, 100%, no strings attached, because you've been disadvantaged because you're black. Whites need not apply. So this package is going, and Joe Biden said it. He said, we are going to concentrate this package on the disadvantaged in the communities of color. So if you're white, you don't get that. $4 billion to pay off loans. $1 billion in world food assistance. Now, I don't have a problem with this. I don't have a problem being charitable. But I believe the United States government is going to pick and choose who gets it based on their environmental, social justice bullcrap. They're going to give it and waste most of that money. And $1 billion in food assistance. What about all the poor, starving children here? The doubling of the federal minimum wage was in it, but it looks like the parliamentarian said you can't do that in this bill. $8 billion to expand broadband access. They say that's for COVID. If I'm being charitable, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right, like that's one of the stretch ones, though, right?
It
like,
is.
Because more people are on Zoom calls and everyone's working from home.
Correct.
They need better internet.
And in poor communities, they may not have broadband access
for schools.
It's
like, okay, again, that's a stretch, but I can at least see the tie to COVID.
Now, I'd like to see how Stretch Armstrong can go on this one. $270 billion for the National Endowment for the Arts and Humanities.
Oh my.
Now, that's COVID. You know why? Because those theaters are struggling. Those theaters and those artists have not been able to work or have an audience. What are they going to do? I don't know. Get another job.
But we have all sorts of unemployment insurance built into this bill. Mm-hmm. So we're funding...
Right.
And we have
there's
major
upkeep.
loans.
There's upkeep on these big beautiful buildings like the Kennedy Center,
which is why they have all these loans and
endowments.
Programs.
$200 million for the Institute for Library and Museum Services. Now, let me just say this: as a guy who is working on a library and museum and building one.
Oh, we can get some of this money.
Maybe I can get some of this money.
Right?
I don't think so. My expenses could be zero except for rent right now because I can't let anybody in. You can't come into a museum. You don't have these museums and these libraries in Washington open. Why do you need extra money? $50 million for environmental justice grants. You have $10 million for, and this is COVID related, $10 million for Native American language preservation.
So I know COVID does a lot of damage. It kills languges?
It kills languages.
Okay,
Native American languages.
Only Native American languages.
Progressivism is killing the English language.
Okay.
But COVID apparently killed the Native American language. A third round of relief checks of $1,400 for Americans adds up to $422 billion. That's what I think people think a COVID bill relief bill is.
Right.
I think that's what they think it is.
You're out of work.
That's not what it is.
You're getting money.
Right.
That one makes some stimulus sense to a lot of people.
Right.
That's what people think of this.
Right. Except $422 billion for everybody affected in the United States with COVID. $422 billion is what you get. But the states, the blue states, on top of that, because Andrew Cuomo has been struggling the cupboard is bare.
And people keep moving out of a state.
Right. How are we going to deal with all these empty buildings and empty offices? They get $350 billion in bailouts. Now, not the states like Texas, not the state of Florida, South Dakota. Are you kidding me? Only the states that did the right thing and really shut their state down. They get $350 billion, while every individual in America is only worth $422 billion. $29 billion to open schools. I can do that one for free. Teachers, get your ass in the classroom or you're fired on Monday. That didn't cost anything. Somebody should try that. $40 billion for higher education because you can't expect Yale to dip into their trust funds. $39 billion for child care. Here's one. $1.5 billion for Amtrak. $50 billion for FEMA. $90 billion for mass transit, because let me tell you something. There is nothing America needs more than that maintenance work on the bridge between New York and Canada. And of course, the $100 million metro tunnel, the extension, the 6.5 mile extension in Silicon Valley, because those poor guys in Silicon Valley, how are they going to get to work? Sure. Helicopter, hoverboard, just a bunch of their employees carrying them into the office. They, of course, need that extension of 6.5 miles for $100 million, a $15 billion payroll support for airlines, and this is good, $246 billion. It's $400 a week more in federal enhanced unemployment benefits through August. Now, the CBO has said this increase of money will now increase the unemployment rate as well as decrease the labor force in job participation, since unemployment will be more profitable than finding a job. There's your economic stimulus bill. There is what's going to fix the country. There, my friend, along with all of the Equality Act, which is going to help the small businessman and the churches, going to help them so much. It's going to be so good for your children. That is just the beginning of the consequence of your neighbor or somebody down the street that, yeah, I believe in the Constitution, and didn't get their fat ass out of the chair.